long daily commute. I drive about an hour and 15 minutes this way and back, so that's about 2.5 hours, I would say, a day. I just found myself always just thinking about small little things in life that were actually at the end very meaningless, but obsessing over them concerns, and I was just worrying about all these small little things and had this fear that something might happen, that time that I had on hand was really not healthy mentally and physically for myself. So I started listening to audiobooks as it was introduced in the beginning, and I really enjoyed Princess of Mars. The book itself was really good, but I was more intrigued by what inspired the author to write that book in the 1920s. It was that creativity that he used when he wrote this crazy story about Mars, and what impression did people have in the 1920s, in the early 1900s. I'm sure they knew nothing about that, about the planet compared to what we know now. Fellow Toastmasters and Eric today, I'm not here to tell you that Mars is the 4th planet from the sun in our solar system. Obviously, you can turn into Google right away. I'm here to tell you some of the interesting things I found when I was researching about the past perception of Mars, such as the name Mars itself, and the misconception of Mars in the early 1900s, and how far we've come since then. So let's start with the name Mars. As you all know, all the planets in our solar system are named after Roman gods. Mars is named after Roman god of war. And it's because of the amount of iron in the atmosphere and the rust on the surface of the planet that Mars show as the rusty red color, which Romans associated that with blood and violence. And the Romans weren't the only ones who did that. Other ancient groups also named the planet after their god of fire and destruction. So let's bring that over and jump to the 1900s, early 1900s. So telescopes back then weren't as developed. So some of the scientists were seeing these mirages of the planet, thinking there were canals on Mars. And the finding caused a lot of people to believe that there were real Martian cities and people living there. And they were so afraid of people or the aliens coming and visiting Earth, and they were just so fearful of it. So from that situation, a lot of authors were inspired to write books about Mars. This is where Princess of Mars was written, and I'm sure you guys are all aware of this one book, War of the Worlds. So now that being said, in 1938, this one radio talk show decided to broadcast their version of War of the Worlds happening at that moment. And it was so, they acted it out as it was happening. And thousands and thousands of listeners believed that was really happening, that they were being under attack. They were going through the local churches and saying, get the hell out of there, go home, and prepare to die. And that's what's going on. And from that happening, I mean, there were rumors of people committing suicide because they were so fearful of what was coming up next. They couldn't handle it. But it's a rumor. I can't confirm that was actually happening. But since then, look at where we've come so far. Like, NASA just released some information saying that there's enough evidence to say that on Mars there's water now. And in the short term, that doesn't really mean much to us. But long term, that opens up endless possibilities. We don't know what that means to us, but it opens up so many different doors. So perspective on Mars has changed completely over the years, and completely over the years. And so did their actions. I mean, the people, how they view Mars has completely changed. I mean, nowadays people are really so excited about the new findings that they're coming out with articles and videos. And I mean, people are tweeting everywhere saying, hey, I'll go live there as long as there's Wi-Fi. That makes no sense from being so fearful of this one planet. Now they're wanting to go live there. So why am I telling you all these stories? I mean, if you really look at what happened in the 1900s or before that, it really shows your perspective on Mars, because of the color red, really made you judge on that planet and what would happen in the future, and you were just so fearful of what would happen later on. Fellow Toastmasters and Eric, why am I talking about this today? I'm definitely not here to, again, lecture you on Mars. I wanted to share my experience when, in the beginning, I had mentioned that in the car, I revisit small little issues here and there that's so meaningless, so small. And I fear certain things that might happen, but then after I did all this researching, it really hit me that it's your perspective that changes how you behave, how you perceive certain things at the same time. If you already made up your mind about something, then you're not going to be able to really see what's actually happening. So, fellow Toastmasters and Eric, I truly believe that at the very bottom line, it's very important for us to see what we're struggling with and just ask ourselves, are we actually dealing with the same exact situation that we think we're dealing with? Or is it our predetermined mindset that's